I'm walking along after I got my snack and had pretty much already eaten it because when you're that young, it's like instant gratification, right? And so I'm looking up and I see these three white lights and I think it's an airplane because I'm familiar with aviation, from my mom being interested in it. She had relatives that ran a crop dusting business on the dry farm she grew up in the middle of nowhere, Montana, just 20 miles south of the Canadian border. But anyway, so I'm speculating. I'd been to a few air shows, so like I was interested. Like I wanted to learn to fly at that age. I thought that would be a cool thing. And then, like I say, as it got closer, it's like I realized it wasn't an airplane. And when it got close enough, I saw that it was just three white orbs, and just like knowing what I know now, and distances, and like being able to measure and all that stuff, I would estimate that these orbs were maybe 2 to 3 feet in diameter.
After you listen to this podcast, jump on over to our Patreon page, become a Patreon member, and you will get access to thousands of hours of exclusive content, unedited, uncensored, long format interviews you're only going to hear on Leak Project. I talk with Chalrie for about 2 hours in this presentation, so you can listen to the rest of this presentation on Patreon. Just uploaded an awesome interview with Mark Lerner. The 2025 forecast based upon the star charts is incredible. You'll want to watch that. And I just uploaded another interview with a gentleman that is sharing footage of what could potentially be footprints in Texas, millions of years old, that are next to these dinosaur prints that are estimated to be about 100 million years old. So it's good to be skeptical, and it's definitely worth looking into when you look at these images because they look a lot like footprints. So I'll see you over on Patreon, and thank you for watching the shows, ladies and gentlemen. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and leave a comment in the comment section for the algorithms. Much appreciated.
And when it got close enough, I saw there was another set of orbs that were kind of a bright red, about the same diameter. Like, and I showed you the picture of the three whites and the three reds right behind them. And then it's like I say, it was only like a week, maybe 2 weeks before that I had seen the Tomorrow with Tom Schneider, in the interview with Betty Hill. And so of course, when we're young, when we first start like seeing like grainy pictures in a book about UFOs or something, it's like, I want to see one too. It would be cool to see it, And then when I saw, like, it wasn't a flying saucer, but as soon as I realized that this was something very unusual, that it had to be, something like ET or something like that, because I'd just seen a program about it. Because I was a little kid, I liked airplanes too. I'd always do that to airplanes. I wasn't a little kid anymore by then, but it was kind of the same response. It's like, I wasn't expecting it to see me or do anything, right? And then I waved, and then it stopped, and all right. And then so I was like in amazement looking at it, and then I just looked to the right of a little bit. Then there's another exact same thing, three whites and I didn't know where the hell it came from. I didn't see it appear. I didn't see it like slide in, or it might have slid in, but I was looking at the other thing, but I didn't like notice it. Then look, I just looked over, and then like there it was, and I'm still scared, and I'm walking along going, okay, And then they separated a little bit, and like I say, they flew that pirouette around my head a couple of times, and then they both flew off in parallel one way, and then came back another way. Now I'm getting a little fuzzy on how many times they went back and forth over me, but I think 2 times they went out of sight, came back, out of sight, and then didn't come back. And then I told my parents about it. I mean, it's not like I didn't tell anybody. But
was this when you were on the run, or was this when you came back?
No, this was a couple years after.
Okay.
This was a couple years after that. Like I say, when everything had been all, patched up, because otherwise they wouldn't have said, yeah, you can go walk to the convenience store and get yourself a snack. They wouldn't have let me. But and my parents were concerned and caring. I mean, I didn't get away with anything. I had to be back by, whatever time and all that, or I'd be in big trouble. So, so I told my parents about it, and they, it's like, well, what do you do about it? I don't know, but, and just like, I didn't even tell my friends about it. Like, and I don't know why, because I don't know why I never did. But like years later, like in high school, like if the subject came up, I would bring up, or like even after high school, I would, when the subject started getting more popularity and television programming, like with cable TV, and more people are familiar, then I would talk about it. But so, and then I remember after they flew off and they didn't come back, I finished walking the rest of the way home, and all this was transpiring while I was kind of slowly walking, because like, all right, now I don't really want them to land. I don't want it because I'm scared now. But then they went away, and then I was walking the rest of the way home, like, damn, why was I so scared? I mean, why, I wish I wouldn't have been scared, because I think I kind of got the feeling that as soon as I went, you know, they, whatever, knew that I was too scared, so they didn't do anything like that. And but I remember being very regretful. Like, God, I missed my chance, man, because I was scared. And then about a week or two later, I had this most intense, vivid dream that I was uh, that I was going to meet aliens. And like in this dream, I was kind of like just in a dark area, a dark street, something like that. And I go up to a house, and I go inside the house, and there's like a center island, like a kitchen kind of center island thing. And there's like bar stool sized chairs around it, because center island's like a bar, right? And so I got up on a chair and then just sat on the island, and I just knew they were coming in. And uh, uh, I'm kind of going on a tangent at this spot for a second. Do you remember watching a cable special on the Rendlesham Forest? And I think it was Pope. What's his name? John Pope, whatever.
Nick Pope. I didn't see it, but I know about the incident.
Yeah, well, there was a documentary that he was featured in that went through the Rendlesham Forest thing in England, and it had actual audio footage of the guy that was in charge of things that went outside the base into the woods to check out these lights that landed there. And he had like a small handheld, like a micro cassette tape player, and he was recording his thoughts and reactions. And he said, and just the way he said it, he said, "This is weird." Well, anyway, fast forward. So I'm sitting there to myself, I'm going, "This is weird." So fast forward, 20 plus years later, I see this special, and this guy says, "This is weird." And the way he said it just instantly brought me right back to that dream. Just the way I like, this is weird, and I'm really scared. This is weird. And then like these three entities came in. I can't really describe what their faces were like anymore, but they were maybe about 3 foot tall or so. And one of them sat in the chair that I had used as a step up to sit on the edge of the center island thing. And we just started making small talk. I guess like, wow, I guess this is kind of strange for me. I've never met anyone like you. What are things like? Yada yada, like that. And in the dream, it's like I knew that it was going to go for that. They were going to do something to me. Everything went black. So as part of that journey, I went on MUFON on their website, because I wasn't sure if I had ever been abducted or not. I wasn't sure. And if I do get hypnosis, am I just going to rehash what I already know about it from all the programming I've watched about it? What the abduction experience is like, the typical scenarios, what happened to people. And so I filled out a questionnaire on MUFON. And one of the questions that came up, have you had experience with orbs or UFOs? Well, it's like my UFO experience had to do with orbs. And funny enough, like all the subsequent UFO footage I've watched, it's not until the last 3 to 5 years that I've started seeing the kind of orbs in the footage people submit that was anywhere near like like what I saw that night. And in fact, I know I sent you a link. It had 3 orbs in a row, but they were stacked up like 5 high or whatever, like by. And I said, and I think in the text I said, cover up all but the top 3, and that's what I initially saw. That's what it looked like to me when I initially saw it. Coming through the sky, just 3 white orbs, like right in a row. But this is early on in 2012. I hadn't seen any footage like that or people talking about orbs, and so I go, okay, check there. I mean, 2 yeses and 1 question. And then the next one was, did you have problems with like monsters or ghosts in your closet when you were a child? It's like, I would have never thought, because lots of kids have that, right? You know, and but mine were particularly frightening. But it brought back some memories, just like it brought back some instantaneously, and then like the more I thought about it, like one of the last night fright experiences I had, I was about 7 years old, and I wake up in the middle of the night, and I had never seen a picture of a gray yet. At this point, we're talking 1967, right? And so I hadn't even seen any pictures of grays or aliens like that at that time. But now, like when that memory came back to me, um, it was like a small gray, but in a black hooded robe, like a monk or something like that. And it was luminous. It was like it was emitting light, and it was just standing right next to my bed. And I can't tell you how absolutely terrified I was. I couldn't even scream or nothing. So I put the covers over my head. I didn't know what else to do. And then I just woke up the next morning. It's like, oh, it's like one of those things, right? And then by the time I was 8, that kind of thing had kind of stopped happening to me. Like, things in the closet, ghosts like flying around the room, tormenting me. I remember I must have been like 3 years old, and we were living in Northeast Minneapolis. We were living in a house that had been converted to 2 living spaces, an upstairs apartment and a downstairs apartment, but they weren't apartments. It was a house. And I woke everybody up upstairs and downstairs screaming because I was convinced there was a bear coming out of my closet. And then at another point, I was with the upstairs neighbor boy down in my room, and there was like this kind of demonic entity in the closet. And it was like, it was during waking hours. My parents and sisters were in the next room watching television. Yeah, no black and white you had to walk up to and change the 3 or 4 channels you had. But and like we had gotten some treat, like a soda fountain treat, and we had like these drinks and the paper straws. Well, the neighbor boy didn't seem bothered by this thing in the closet at all. It kind of had horns, kind of like a bull. It was kind of demonic looking, and he started shooting spit wads at it with the straw, and I did too. Like, okay, it was like it was playing with us. And by then I'd already complained about it, and then mom and dad said it's just your imagination. There's nothing in the closet. The whole thing with the lights on. See, there's nothing in here. Nothing. Da, 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 da. And plus, since it was like uh, during like waking hours, and the other little boy didn't seem bothered by it at all. Like he was a year or 2 older than me. It was just kind of like incidents like that I quit thinking about. It's like you grow up, you get old, you don't even remember about that stuff anymore. So when that got brought up, it's like, wow, that's like, yes, in spades. Like I became convinced that I probably am an experiencer of some sort, but I don't know what that means. Am I just like some livestock they picked up somewhere, took a few samples from, and then okay, we're done with you? It's like, I don't think I have any like message.
People are going to watch this. They're going to start to question the narrative of this Hollywood version of aliens and UFOs. Now, what you're telling me, I'm and your experiences and the way that your mind perceives these experiences years later, one of the thoughts that I've had recently is, could these things almost be trickster like? They make you see something and perceive something that's completely different from what's going on. They can actually get into your head. And are they extraterrestrial? Probably. Are they interdimensional? Probably. Like these three lights coming around, as you say, and then appearing to you and almost making you overwhelmed with what they're doing. And so it's like, then as a kid, you see something like that, it could overwhelm you so much, you could almost like pass out from excitement. Like what the, whoa, just, literally pass out because you're just so shocked. And I find it very interesting. I think that there's got to be, we need to dig deep.